have equality and choice. Now so as I said before, South Cambridgeshire has already achieved level 2. How many of you know that or know anything about disability confident? Can I ask you, if there's only a few of us on the call, we might as well have a chat about it. Is anybody aware of disability confident or your status? Kate's
we
aware.
are,
No.
yep, so we are a level 2 accredited. I think we achieved that definitely in the last year. I don't know whether or not we achieved it in previous years, and we've just maintained it. And I think it is the term expires. I don't know. Like, it runs out next year. I've been informed by HR.
Okay. So it stands for 3 years, Kate.
Okay.
So okay. So it's next year that you.
I think that's what we're considering. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can move up at any time within those 3 years, but at the end of 3 years, you've got 3 choices: either to move to the next level 3 is the top one, or renew, or let it lapse. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, no, I've not. To be honest, I haven't heard of the different levels, and I don't want to jump the gun if you are about to explain this, but I would be quite interested to know, like, what the eligibility criteria is for each level, or how you go from level 1 to 3. I'd be quite interested to hear that. But I don't know if you're going to cover that in a sec. So sorry.
Yeah, well, a little bit about level 2, but thank you. That's very helpful. So, good question. So level 1 is disability confident committed, and everybody has to do them in order. So you have to do 1, then 2, then 3. There's a 3-year period before you need to either move on or renew. Level 1 shows commitment. So it's not an arduous task. We can help any organisation to sign up online on the DWP website if you need help. Sometimes it's just nice to have somebody on the other end of a Teams call, and you as an organisation agree to the commitments, and then you commit to 1 activity, and that then informs the level 2, and the level 2 very nicely leads into this next slide of what you guys did 2 years ago then, I guess, Kate, to achieve level 2. So level 1 is definitely just starting to think about it. It's not too arduous. You're not signing masses of promises, and you're not really going to be tested on it. The idea is that you're thinking about how you manage your culture. So level 2 is a little bit more work. So the team will have carried out a self-assessment, and that's the biggest job, and the self-assessment will then inform the level 3 application, and the level 3 application is much more work. The report is probably a 200-page document, so there's a big step up between level 2 and level 3. But between 1 and 2, it's a kind of nice development, I think. So that self-assessment, your team write it and you submit it. Papworth Trust, we can help you with that. We've got a toolkit, but it's to test out your organisation against a set of statements about employing disabled people. So, and it focuses on recruitment and retention, and we're going to talk quite a lot about retention today. So the disability, you can see the disability confident employer badge at the top of the screen. That's what your council should be showing on all of your job adverts, as well as the website and your social media where relevant, because you are now part of the list of employers nationally that have signed up to Disability Confident. So anybody with a disability, hidden or otherwise, when they're looking for a job, will be looking at that list of Disability Confident employers. And so it's very important that, for example, it's on job adverts and on your email signatures, all that kind of thing. You'd be surprised how many reports I write at level 3, and they've got the badge, but they haven't quite joined up the process, or it's on some job adverts, but not others. So level 3 is where we get into the nitty gritty, but level 2 is where the most impact is made. That's what the DWP says in terms of employees and future employees. So the scheme is already supporting 11 million employees. So those are employees of organisations that have signed up to 1, 2 or 3. And that level 2 self-assessment that I talked about is based around those 2 themes that I mentioned. The first one, getting the right people for your business, or recruitment, and then the second one, keeping and developing your people, retention. So we'll look at the 7 areas and the 6 areas in a minute, and that's, so your self-assessment, let me be clear, has already been done. It's 2 years old, and you're looking to renew it within the next year. Am I right, Kate? So we're just having a check-in to see how many people know about it, and just a kind of refresh of you guys thinking what you can do on a day-to-day basis to support all of your colleagues. So getting the right people for your business, this is the recruitment bit, the core actions. So you'll remember from the previous slide, there are 7, 2, 4, 6, must be one more, there we go. So in terms of recruiting, actively attracting disabled people, so Even Break is a good platform where those adverts are placed for people with disabilities, for example. And when you're moving from level 2 to level 3, that would be something that I would be discussing with you, something to think about. Providing a fully inclusive and accessible recruitment process. So how do you advertise and how do you receive those applications? Are you flexible in how you're receiving those applications if somebody has declared a disability? How can somebody with a disability get in touch with the recruitment department if they need some help or flexibility with that application? So it's very small things, but that could make a difference between somebody applying or not. Offering an interview to a disabled person who meets the minimum criteria for the job. Now that's a deal breaker at a level 3. You guys are staying at level 2. But if somebody declares a disability on the application form and they meet the minimum criteria for the job, so that's not everybody, but if they meet the minimum criteria and they've declared a disability, then they can choose to tick a box that says, I'd like to be considered for interview. So that's something that's very important to level 3. So these are things that you as an organisation will be thinking about. It's not a kind of pass or fail, you know, so these are things that should be actively being discussed. Being flexible when assessing people so disabled job applicants have the best opportunity to demonstrate. So how do you interview? Is there a job? Is there a role for doing it differently? Can it be face to face? Is it on Teams? But could it be a work trial? Something like that. Must proactively offer and make reasonable adjustments where required. That's a legal requirement for any employer. Reasonable adjustments are lawful. Reasonable adjustments is not necessarily that you must, build a lift, for example. It's what's reasonable. There's that's the key word. So it's not always about expensive adjustments. Encouraging your suppliers and partner firms to be disability confident. So your office buys loo roll, maybe it buys tea bags. Where do you get that from? It's that, start small. So procurement. Where are you buying your stuff from, and have you talked to them about disability confident in order to raise awareness? Ensure employees have appropriate disability equality awareness. So that's about training. So that's quite a list. And then you will have signed up to one action out of those. So 2 years ago, you will have signed up to one activity from that list. The one at the bottom, engaging with Job Centre Plus work and health programme providers, that again is a deal breaker for level 3. You have to do that single one. That's free job advertising, of course, so it's win-win really. Papworth Trust, anecdotally, is the work and health provider for Cambridgeshire. So if you were doing level 3 and we were your validator, then talking to us about the work and health programme would certainly do that. But that's a free job advert. So that's one of the easiest and most impactful activities that you can do on that list. Anybody got any questions so far? Okay, so let's go on to the next bit, which is retention, staff retention. So keeping and developing your people. Again, the action 6 this time. Promoting a culture, which we're going to talk about in more detail in a minute. Supporting colleagues to manage their disabilities or health conditions, as we said last week. Those of you who were with me, hidden health conditions are classed as disabilities, and we went through some of those last week, and some people were quite surprised about what comes under the umbrella of the term disability. And are all of your colleagues declaring their long-term condition or hidden disability? That's about the top point, promoting a culture of inclusion and being disability confident, because when colleagues can share their health conditions with their colleagues and their managers, that can only be a good thing in terms of there being more understanding and more acceptance in the workplace, and flexibility, of course. So what I've just said, really, that's a good example. In ensuring that there are no barriers to the development and progression of disabled staff, ensuring managers are aware of how they can support staff who are sick or absent from work, valuing and listening to feedback from disabled staff. So do you have a disabled staff forum, for example? And reviewing this disability confident employer assessment regularly, which this presentation today is part of that, just keeping it active in the 2 years that you've done so far. And so this is the list of activities for staff retention. And you will have, 2 years ago, you will have chosen one of those to sign up to and be working towards. Probably when you look at that list, you can say that you're doing more than one. So Ben, that was a long way of getting into your question, but that's level 2 so far, and you've done that, and you're going to renew it, which seems like a very sensible choice, rather than embarking on the big work of level 3. And as I said, the DWP is very clear that this level is where the most impact hits employees. So it's a good idea to take your time and embed the values that you've focused upon. Okay, so your disability confident level 2. Why did South Cambridgeshire bother with level 1 and level 2 anyway? Well, now we're going to kind of turn the focus onto you guys and how it can make a difference to your day and your colleagues' work life. So I showed these two statistics last week. It's worth showing them again. Some of you weren't with me last week, but it does take your breath away, I think. So the charity scope says that 83% of people develop their disability within their within their working lives. So that's between the ages of 16 and 65. Some kind of disability or long-term health condition. So, for example, I'm type 1 diabetic, and that falls into the disability protected characteristic. I developed that when I was 15, so that I wouldn't be part of that statistic. But when you think about it, when you're first employed, things happen over time between the ages of 16 and 65, and so when you break it down, it's not quite such a shock that 83% of people acquire their disability. But last week we explored what disability is, and health conditions like lupus, for example, fall into that characteristic, and it's a legal term. So 1 in 3 of the working age population in England report having at least one long-term health condition. Interestingly, anybody who's ever had cancer and is in remission, that's a long-term health condition for life. You're protected for life. So somebody might have had cancer 20 years ago. You don't know anything about it, but they should be feeling comfortable enough to disclose that, so that there might be adjustments that could be in place that would help them, that wouldn't cost any money. So that's about retaining colleagues. I'm sure that you've all heard stories of somebody who's developed some kind of condition and then has had to leave their job. The government doesn't want that to happen anymore. So, Kate, I put here 4 breakout rooms, but I think we've got 3 and we can manage with 3. Is it all right to go into the breakout rooms now?
Yep, let me figure out how to do that. I set it up with, oh, hang on, breakout rooms. There we go, right at the top. Bear with. Assigned participant. Okay, I will assign.
Kate, I think you've got your microphone up.
Oh, okay, sorry.
There you go.
I will. I'm glad
we could
you're
hear
in the office.
you just
spot
sounded
that.
a long way away.
Oh, that's something. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
assign people now. Oh, I feel so judgy. And then people can join their rooms.
So I'll just read them out. So group 1 is going to discuss, so these are the scenarios that I've just made up, but to think about, now that you're a level 2 disability confident employer, what would you expect to go on in your workplace?
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Kate.
Hi there. You okay?
Yeah,
Oh,
I can see the slides and
oh, okay. I don't know how I've done that. Oh, I'm not doing well on the technology today.
nice.
Let's have a look. I'll go find Fleur in one of the rooms. Here we go. Oh no. Why can't I ask her to rename join room? Okay, I'm gonna have to go join her room and see whether or not I can get her to come back, because I can't see anything, which worries me even more now. I will be hopefully back.
All right.
I hope so. I'll go find Fleur. Bear with.
is critical, really, in terms of recruitment training, so that across an organisation it's consistent. I think that's part of a problem for certainly a large organisation, that it becomes well, you know, this manager's great, it's part of this manager's enthusiasm, but this one, well, we don't get quite that same treatment in another department. And level 3 is definitely about ironing that out across the board. Is everybody back? Have we got the other groups back, or am I still with just group 1?
We're group 3 and we only just came back.
Okay, welcome back, group
but
3.
We couldn't see the slides, so
yes.
So we kind of had our own little chat about this kind of thing, but we didn't. Yeah, we wasn't sure which scenario.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, thank you for having a chat related. I'm sure it was very useful.
Yeah,
so,
I think we could remember what the first scenario was. We talked about that for a little bit. And yeah.
Okay. Have we got everybody back yet? Shall I make a start? I can hear somebody in the distance.
Oh, sorry, that's me. Sorry, that's me with my mic on. Sorry.
Oh, okay. No, that's
I apologise if it's sort of strange, sort of breathing. That's
myself. No, it's good to hear breathing. Does somebody want to talk through group 1, if that was the easiest one to read, that maybe before the breakout rooms broke a little bit prematurely? I'm
happy to introduce for group 1 if you wish.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so in our discussion, our question was someone who says he's developed a long-term disability.
Yes.
Recently developed a long-term disability, and they haven't told their manager yet. So we were under the impression that it is the individual's prerogative about whether they wish to tell their manager or not, and it shall always be their prerogative if they so wish.
Yep, absolutely right.
But we would personally gently encourage them to tell their manager, so that the manager can account for it and can make provisions for it if it should be so needed, and especially if it's potentially debilitating, or it causes any other issues later on down the line. Mm-hmm. So it can be fully accounted for, because a person might be protected under Equalities Act. But of course, just to reiterate, it is only for that person to tell their manager if they so wish. Brilliant.
Wow. Yeah. It's like, yeah, somebody wrote it for you, and yeah, absolutely scripted. Brilliant. Perfect.
Being very kind. Thank you.
I really like that you started with that. It's about choice. You know, you started with that and you finished with that. Brilliant sandwich. It's about choice. What we're here today to do is to talk about a safe culture rather than a culture of fear. What happened? What are the consequences if I disclose my long-term health condition or hidden disability? What does that mean for me? If a colleague understands that there are only benefits to that, and they're not going to be treated differently or penalised in terms of, say, absence or the absence policy, if there's a culture of inclusion, then why not, excuse me, disclose your disability, because it could only bring advantages, as you say, to reasonable adjustments and so on. But having said that, you probably have a survey every year. Of course, you have one-to-ones where your manager should be asking you regularly, has your health changed? And those statistics from certainly the survey are worth looking at. Have those disclosures improved since you became disability confident level 2? Because that's a kind of basic test, really, of how safe colleagues feel in order to disclose. Thank you very much, Group 1. I think you were probably lucky because I'd read Group 1 when you went into the breakout room. But nevertheless, well done, brilliant. We've done a lot of talk with level Group 2, Group 3 and Group 4. Did you manage to have a discussion, or were you a little bit at sea? Group 3.
Hello, Group 3 was us, me and Bonnie. Mark was there, but he's not able to contribute. We didn't know what the slides said.
Okay.
So we discussed the first one, and we were saying, obviously everything Adam said, but we were also saying that we need to be kind of questioning why someone wouldn't want to tell the manager, also whether or not there'd be someone perhaps in HR they could speak to. So speak to HR rather than their manager. So I don't know if it helped someone feel better. So perhaps to discuss that with them and say that, you know, there are options, and talk to them about how, like, for instance, if it was, I don't know, like a cancer diagnosis, that, you know, oh, do you realise that, you know, if you let at least let HR know, it might help, and, you know, that, just have a bit of an open discussion with them. Yes, of course it is their choice.
But I like your small steps.
Yes,
you're talking in a friendly way, and these are options, and if you're afraid of this, then don't be afraid. Lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a mental health first aider, so I think my automatic reaction was to treat it as that kind of situation, and try and help them, talk them through it, help them feel better about because obviously they're worried. If they've brought it up to you that they've had this medical diagnosis and they haven't told somebody, then clearly there's some kind of worry there. And then we went on to kind of chat, because we didn't know what question we were looking at. So then we kind of went on to chat about the session last week and how some of the hidden disabilities that we weren't aware were actually classed as hidden disabilities. So we were talking about endometriosis and things like that we weren't aware until last week's session, that they were classed hidden disability in the workplace. So we just were chatting about that, which was interesting.
Lovely. Oh my goodness, perfect.
So we went off topic totally.
No, but I don't know why I gave you jobs to do, because you were doing absolutely revising last week.
So we were listening last week.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, you see, sometimes you just go on your own. Thank you. And number 4, anybody got any feedback from number 4? I don't want to put you on the spot because you probably didn't see the scenario.
We only had the 3 breakout rooms, 1, 2 and 3.
Oh, you only had, okay. Yeah, okay, thank you. Group 3, just for, again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but anybody who's looking at the slide now, hearing impairment, is struggling with Teams meetings, what would be the first thing that would come to mind? What would be a really easy flick of the switch? What's available on Teams? I think somebody's got their mic away from their face.
I was just going to say Ben has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, I've lost the hands now. Sorry. Go ahead, Ben. Thank you. Thank you for telling me.
That's you can can't think of the actual word for it now, but you can get like scripts, like transcripts.
Yes.
So when someone's speaking, you can read the words. Is that I think, is it transcripts? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, that's it. And so it's a really easy, you know, the tech team can just, you know, I mean, you know, there'll be a colleague who can show that, but that, so that idea of that's a really quick, easy solution, without declaring if that person is struggling with that, hasn't quite made the journey, doesn't quite feel safe enough. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Thank you very much, everybody, for managing that, and I'm glad that you were all engaged. You know, that's the idea. Doesn't really matter what scenario we're talking about. I'm glad that everybody contributed. So we might be thinking reasonable adjustments. It's going to cost a lot of money. let me just be clear about the difference between reasonable adjustments and the Access to Work Fund. Reasonable adjustments, an employer has to implement reasonable adjustments by law. The Access to Work Fund is a fund by the government that's a pot of 67 billion that is not accessed. The DWP is very, very upset that all of this money is sitting in a pot and very little of it is used. It's for employers and their employees to access. The employee has to apply, but the employer can support. And we're just going to go through the bit of nitty-gritty for Access to Work. I'm going to send the slides back to Kate, so you'll have them to look at your leisure, and we'll scoot through them. But Access to Work is a hidden secret, so employers don't need to be afraid of making adjustments or to employ disabled people. So let's have a look. Access to Work, as I said, is a government grant which helps people with disabilities to take up or remain in employment. So if you've got if you're one of the 83% who've developed a long-term health condition, you can still apply for Access to Work in order to retain you in the workplace. It's available for mental health as well as other maybe more physical pieces of equipment in the workplace, and also transport to work if somebody's not able to use public transport. Access to Work is also available for disabilities that only become apparent in the workplace, and the common one is on computer screens with eyesight. Access to Work also pay for assessments to see what's needed in a new job. And here's the gold. Applications can be submitted up to 6 weeks before a start date, as long as the job is confirmed with some evidence. And that makes a difference to the amount of money available, because the larger the organisation, the less the money is available. An employer is asked to make a small contribution, but 6 weeks before or before employment, everything is free. The employer doesn't have to contribute anything, which is why it's so important for applicants to tick that box and or to declare that disability at interview or before they accept the role. So it's covered for 3 years. So the funding is covered for 3 years, and then there'll be a review. So I knew a case of a hearing impaired applicant that needed British Sign Language interpreter for a while. Once they got the hang of the job, they didn't need it. So that's the other thing to think about. It will be reviewed, and it need not be an ongoing thing. Anybody got any questions about the? If you could just turn your mic on if you've got a question, because I'm struggling with the hands up. Anybody got any questions about Access to Work? Has that blown your mind? Did you know about it? Any comments about Access to Work? Okay, there's 2 more slides on Access to Work. So this first sentence is really what I've already said, covers a wide range of interventions beyond reasonable adjustments. So the reasonable adjustments are what an employer needs to implement, and that's lawful. All support will be dependent on the individual, which is why the employee has to make the application for Access to Work.
Fleur,
and there's something.
Are we meant to be seeing some slides now? Because I'm not seeing anything.
Oh God, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
If it's a scheme I'm thinking of, I think I've used it in the past. I had seizures and couldn't drive for a year, so they paid for taxis to get me to work. That was 15 years ago, so pre being able to work from home. And yeah, they paid for taxis to pick me up every morning, bring me into the office, and pick me up after the office and take me home.
Yes.
So it was very, very, very useful. Without that, I wouldn't have been able to work for about 14 months until I got my license back. You know, obviously you've got to apply for your license and all that. You know, it's not like they just automatically give it to you back. You've got to, you know, go to your doctors, this, that, and the other. So so it was very useful. I'm presuming it's the same scheme.
That's it.
But I can't see the slides, so I'm not sure. But
it's been running for a long time, but as I said, it's a pretty closely held secret.
Yeah, because I don't know how I found out about it. I think it must have been South Cams that said, "Oh, well, you know, we'll put you in touch with these people." I don't remember. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly it kept me.
And that's one of the most common. You know, I think that does come to people's mind about a taxi to work, especially if your circumstances have changed. But there's so much more. And it should really be on everybody's SharePoint, every organisation, you know, access to work on the CEO update or whatever, to just have a look, because you need to do the application yourself. But, you know, an employer should be helping you with that, because hopefully managers will have helped other people through it. And so it's not a tricky thing. And as you say, they come out and do an assessment always in the workplace. So I'm glad to hear that happened. You say 15 years ago?
Yes, 15 years ago.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. That's brilliant. So
I really don't. I wish I remembered how it happened. Who put me in touch? It must have been South Cams who put me in touch with them.
Yes.
But yeah, it was very simple. And I think I got a taxi company. Had to get a few quotes to make sure that, you know, I wasn't getting a really ridiculously expensive one. But they paid the taxi driver direct. I didn't have to do anything. It was all very, very simple. And yeah, they got me to work and back. So, you know, I'd been very, very poorly, but I was then better and able to work. But the only thing in my way was the fact that I live 10 miles away and couldn't get into the office. So yeah.
And at that time, as you say, before working, yes, it works.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Now, if you were poorly or, you know, wasn't allowed to drive, then you'd just work from home, wouldn't you? But that wasn't a thing back in the olden days.
No. And even support at some interview. So if you've declared a disability, you know, the money is there for a taxi to the interview, for example. In order to, you know, whether you're successful or not, that doesn't matter. All you need to do is supply evidence that you've got an interview to access to work, or you know, you need a BSL interpreter for the interview. So it is about getting in early and being organised for the interviews, or a support worker, for example. So I'll send these slides to you. Well, I'll send them to Kate when we're finished.
A few people were saying I've got to leave as well.
Okay, yeah, we're running
another meeting, but I think a few people on the chat have been saying they've got to go.
Okay, no, thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure you saw that.
Thank you. The last thing I want to say is that mental health is included, and Remploy runs the mental health support for access to work in this area of the country. It's really important. You know, you said that you're mental health first aider. It's really important that people know about that. That's been a recent development, that mental health support is now available for 9 months, funded by Access to Work. And that's in the last 2-3 years. Okay, so that's a useful piece of information, I think, to leave with. if you want to get in touch with me, my email address is on the slide that's coming out to Kate. And thanks very much for your dynamism and understanding today when I've had a